I'm Ingrid Brown, and I am your host for Life on 18 Wheels, presented by WLA Trucking in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Now, most of you know that as Mayberry RFD. We really are the OGs of trucking in Mayberry. And it's really, really neat because we're going to bring you some information today that so many people, not just carriers, but brokers included, but drivers are really interested in, and that's about the produce. What's going on the West Coast? How is it going on the West Coast? And if anybody doesn't know, it's moving on the West Coast. So I have my favorite guy. I have Colby Varley with ATS out of Salinas, California. And listen, this is my produce pimp, okay? He's my produce pimp. Hey, Colby, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I am just wonderful. And I'm so excited because we just get to hang out now. I mean, hang out.
It's been a little while.
It has been a while. Been a while. I'm enjoying this. I mean, I'm really, WLA's really reached out and have given me a place to go, coming out of the truck on the medical side. And not only that, I don't know, did you know that I used to pull freight for them back in the mid 90s to the early 2000s?
You did mention that.
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, we've stayed in touch. And I used to tell Bobby, one of the brothers, Bobby and Stephen Post, I used to tell Bobby way back then when I was like mid 30s and say, we're going to like get rich and buy a Prevost. You can have it one week and I'll have it the next week. And he was like, oh, God. And he just rolls his eyes. So we haven't got a Prevost yet, but we've got some really neat stuff going on and I'll share some of that. I have something new on Life on 18 Wheels. You ready to kind of play a game with me?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, here you go. All right, we have the illustrious. I'm Vanna. Not really. We have the illustrious WLA Truck and Trailer, right?
Uh-huh.
Tell me what I found in the office to put in the trailer right now.
What did you find in the office to put in the trailer? Hopefully a load.
You got part of that right. Now tell me what the commodity is.
Well, if we were loading from North Carolina, maybe it was some sweet potatoes, or if we're loading out of California, it could be any kind of, mixed vegetable, berries.
Okay. You're pretty good because Now, this thing's pretty cool. Okay, we found out yesterday that the top comes off and you can see the inside of the sleeper and the top bunk.
That?
I know. And I dropped it, and now my antennas looks like a chicken holler with them pointed forward. You know how that is. You get better reception riding down the road.
Of course.
Okay. Are you ready for this?
Let's see it. What is it, a load of carrots?
It's a load of carrots.
There you go.
We have a load of carrots.
I didn't even know the doors opened on those, or the roof.
Check that out.
There you go.
You did good. So, yeah, that's what we're doing is kind of touching base of what I can find in the office to put in the trailer. So that's the thing. What's in the trailer with the guest that's coming on? So for you with produce, what's becoming of carrots from California? And those are from California, by the way. Anybody watching? Colby, I have a bunch of questions. We need to catch up. What is going on in Salinas town? Salinas, California.
Is dying off. If you live here in Salinas, you notice a drastic decrease in traffic, especially anywhere, Abbott Street, Work Street, Sanborn, 101. If you're trying to go anywhere in that area during produce season, it is just a cluster between the trucks, multiple shippers running processing plants 24 hours with, 2 shifts. That 4 or 5 o'clock, it is just a straight gridlock. You got employees coming out, employees coming in, trucks trying to get out, trucks trying to come in. So last week we started our transition from Salinas down to Yuma, Arizona. Um, and it seems like this year everybody pulled the trigger at the exact same time.
Oh
Literally
no.
every shipper decided to move on the same weekend. Um, which can create some logistical challenges for us. Obviously, we help a lot of the shippers here and service them. So, we're moving product, we're moving equipment, we're, helping move their operation essentially overnight from Salinas to Yuma. And when everyone's calling at the same time, it's just, it gets a little hectic, but, it's not our first rodeo, and just get through it.
Okay, I want you to give a little backstory of how you got where you're at and how
Sure.
you got into moving all this stuff. Now, everybody may not realize, but Salinas literally moves. People
Hmm.
move, equipment moves, graders move, employees move. I mean, pallets, boxes, the whole 9 yards goes to Yuma. And when
Yep.
that happens, it's got to be logistics planned. So give us a little bit of, you're a Salinas native.
Yeah,
So
born and raised.
yeah, give us a little backstory and how you got to moving all this stuff.
Well, I grew up in a produce office. My dad still is a produce broker. Um, Not necessarily on the wet vegetable side. He's on the cantaloupes, honeydews, and watermelon side. But he was out here and was doing wet veg for many years, and kind of found his niche on the melon side. Um, so grew up here, went to school here, so you're around it. And in high school I was dating a girl, and I think it was like my senior year, and I was sitting on the couch, and her dad comes home, and he's like, hey, what's your plan this summer? And I was like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, I can tell you what it's not going to be, and that's sitting on my couch. And I was like, okay. And he's like, hey, like, I'll give you a job. Come on down. So it's a small asset-based company here in Salinas. They're still here. They specialize in LTL to San Francisco and Los Angeles markets. Um, so I got my Class B license first, right out of high school, and started doing local pickups. So that's when I really started to, learn the game. Um, you know, they would send me Gilroy, Hollister, Watsonville, Gonzales, Soledad, Greenfield, to make pickups, and we'd bring them back to a consolidation dock and ship them out. And then I went to Fresno State, got my degree in ag business there. And for some wild reason, I decided to go to truck driving school while I was going to school, and ended up getting going from the Class B to the Class A. And so then on summer breaks, holidays, and whatnot, I would come home, and there was always a truck available, right? So started driving, uh, and I loved it, right? I mean, I don't know, people that haven't driven a truck or aren't interested. There's something about 2 o'clock in the morning with all your chicken lights on, and there's nobody on the road, uh, and the music blaring. There's just something about it. Um, so graduated, came back, kept working for that company, worked on the dock, loading the trucks. That really helped, further my knowledge. Then started working the night dispatch, and then moved into the day dispatch, and then ultimately was building the loads, um, daily, going to the markets. Um, and
Physically going to markets.
yeah, so like I would send guys to San Francisco every night, and give them anywhere from like 12 to 25 drops. Um, just like, people that don't do it think you're crazy, and the guys that do it, that's just a normal everyday thing. They roll up with a pallet jack and a ramp and unload themselves at every stop, and it's no big deal. Um, there, was in touch with a gentleman there that had come to ATS and, told me how great it was and how much he loved it. And, told me how, it was the best thing, since sliced bread basically. And, so I, was curious and, I'm always trying to better myself. And I asked him, hey, if there's ever an opportunity, just keep me, on the list. And one day he called and said, hey, you think you could really do this? And I was like, well, I mean, I can try. That's all I can do. So, long story short, Marshall Kipp, which is our CEO, founder, he and my dad drove truck together back in the 1970s for Tom Lang Company. Um, so that's, how small of a world it is, which I didn't know that obviously at the time, but when I came in for the interview, that obviously came up. And yeah, so I ended up making the switch, and it was a little different at first. Obviously, you go from LTL to mostly one pick, one drop, or two, three pickups, one drop. It's totally different. Um, I don't want to say it's easy, but you come from a LTL background, like this stuff isn't as crazy. So yeah, and that's how I got here, and just worked really hard every single day, and um, you know networked with a lot of people, made a lot of great relationships, and those have all kind of paid off. I mean, I feel like I got introduced to you through like a third relationship. Somebody referred me to Kyle, then that's how
Cleaner Brothers. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, but I didn't know who they were, and I was working with somebody, and um, that truck show kind of uh, Chicken Lights and Chrome community has, some special people in it, and they all kind of know each other. So if you get to know one of them, you start to learn them all.
And okay, I'm going to throw this in here because I think I've
Sure.
told you this too. Is we talk about a small world. Now,
Hmm.
2015, okay,
Yeah.
in those chicken lights and chrome, I was at Mid America Truck Show in Louisville, Kentucky, and Tony Justice was there, and we were all sitting around late in the evening in the parking lot, and they were jamming and guitars, and drivers had drug stuff out, and this guy comes walking up, and he's like, y'all do this like a lot? And they're like, yeah, it'll happen every night while we're here. Oh, okay. Hung around a little bit, and it was like, who is that? Never
Yeah.
seen him. He didn't come. He's not in a truck. What's up? Well, the next thing we know, he comes back the next time, and he has a guitar. And it's like, okay, spill the beans. Who are you? And he goes, oh, I live in Salinas. Okay. Well, I still don't know you. Ended up,
Yeah.
it was Marshall Kipp. And
Oh yeah.
when he was playing music, and he came, and that's when I met Marshall for the first time. And when you and I got connected, I don't think Marshall remembered me, but Chap did. So it's
Yeah.
such a small world, and
Oh
yes,
yeah.
it's tied to chicken lights and chrome. So
Yeah.
now to jump into this move deal, because
Okay.
I'm fascinated with, I mean, give us the nilly willy dirty down of how this move and what you're doing, and when you start with all this, because it's twice a year, down and
Yeah,
back up.
twice a year. So, I mean, we have an idea. I mean, usually it seems to be the second weekend in November, and then sometime in the spring, usually around Easter time. And it always varies. And the reason it varies is, I mean, it varies between a week or so each way, just depending on weather patterns, down there, up here. Um, like this year, there's a lot of overlap. So Yuma got started, and there's also still product in Salinas. So there's a little bit of overlap. But then there's been times in the past that, Salinas gets rained out early, and, they're trying to get Yuma going earlier than it really should. Um, and then vice versa on the way back. Um, if we have a wet winter, like last year we had a really wet winter. with all the floods and everything. And, guys struggled to get into the field to plant. So they were trying to drag Yuma out as long as possible. Um, but that also depends on, once it starts getting 90, 100 degrees every day, I mean, the stuff just burns up. So, that's kind of how it works. I mean, we're in contact with, they have schedulers and planners that are forecasting, and they're getting field reports. Like I had an idea, just talking to people going to lunch, they have guys on the ground on the opposite side saying, hey, the crops look good, or the crops don't look good, or, we're on track or we're not on track. So everybody was saying the same thing. So we kind of knew it was going to all hit at once. And it just, you get scheduled. So like some shippers will send over a list like, hey, we have these loads, like, this is when they're going to pick up, this is when they need to deliver. But it's everything from the plastic bins, the raw bins, the RPCs, packaging material, even, raw product, because they want to get the plant started. Uh, it's finished goods. So, I mean, anything that you can imagine to run the operation, they're sending it. So we don't necessarily do like the flatbeds, but like the step deck and flatbed, that's a whole nother side of it. I mean, those guys are moving forklifts, they're moving tubes, they're moving, um, all the equipment for the tubes, battery chargers, just, I mean, everything goes.
Does does like grading machines go? Do they take that size of equipment? Does that move back and forth, or do they
So
leave
that
some of that stuff in Salinas so
No,
they
so
have two of them?
a lot of that stuff stays, but like the harvesters, those all go. Um, right? So those go, like the field trailers go. Um,
Wow.
a lot of the harvest equipment will go. Some of the planting equipment will go. That's obviously, 60 to 90 days or 120 days before everybody else on the planting stuff. But yeah, and that's a whole nother side of, guys with equipment trailers, flatbeds, step decks, doubles trailers for the pallets, or like the corrugated boxes that are, they're not assembled yet, so they're just stacked and saran wrapped on a pallet, and they double stack them. So it's, there's hundreds of loads that get moved.
You said pallets, and it's so crazy because I can remember, especially Juma, when we used to go in and do pallet exchange or actually purchase pallets and have to take pallets to the coolers. And now,
Yeah.
instead of us doing that, now y'all are like transferring them back and forth so that we don't have to do that anymore. And a lot of people today won't understand or won't that doesn't they don't get that.
Yeah, you
So
don't
when
hear
you're
that anymore,
yeah, yeah. So that's,
very
so now
often
you're
at
moving
least.
all of that equipment too.
Hmm.
Crazy. I mean, crazy. What personnel? Um, you know, I personally know people who work at one grower up there and they move seasonal both ways. Here at home in North Carolina, I like holler and green. And, the boys will move in the at Christmas is about it between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and they'll move down to Bunnell and down to Flagler and down to Florida for cabbage. So, and
Yeah.
then they'll come home, at the end of the season. But the mass of people, do they move pretty much all their employees down, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them do, but a lot of them also, there's, a lot of seasonal workers in Arizona or down in the desert. But, I mean, there's multiple people that we talk to, that they're here and then they're like, hey, I'll be in Yuma tomorrow for the season. And it's just, for a lot of people, they don't really understand that, but it's just a way of life here, right? I mean, that's just a lot of these guys, their parents have been in it. So, they grew up with a parent going back and forth to Yuma, and now they're in it. And um, it's just part of the gig. I mean, that's a lot of people. I mean, I never. had that opportunity or was placed in a position to do it, but a lot of people that I know, they did 10 seasons, and then they moved on to something else that requires them not to um, do it anymore. But it's pretty standard. I mean, if you're more on the cooling and like field operation side, you're probably doing that.
Going to do that. It's kind of like driving a truck. I mean, honestly, you know, uh, you're out. You make that choice to run the West Coast back and forth from the East Coast or whatever. We make that change of life. We literally live that part of life, and it's just a different way than what we live, but it's a whole lot the same way. You're away from
Hmm.
home. You got to do your job, and that's how that happens. It amazes me. Now, how long does it take to make that move for Salinas to move to Yuma? It's almost literally like you're picking Salinas up and moving it to Yuma. How long does that usually take?
Yeah, so usually I think the average time for them, they try and break down, load up, get down there and get set up within 48 hours. That's like the goal for them. Because you got to figure if they're down, they're not producing. And they do some things to kind of mitigate that. They'll ramp up production like a week before they leave um, to cover that 2 day uh, gap of non-production, right? Like, uh, the Cisco's, Fresh Points of the world, or whoever, Subways, they don't care that we're moving. All they care about is that they're getting product. Um, so there'll be some, adjustments made like that, or, an extra shipments placed on the back end of it when we're moving or something like that, just to cover, uh, them getting up and going.
And it's with you, and then with Randall and them, I've been on the end of cleaning out coolers and being on
Hmm.
the end of going ahead and finishing up the Salinas side to move to south. Whether it was we moved product from Salinas to Yuma, and then it got moved, consolidated, and moved from Yuma out. And I think we did a load like that this week with you. And by the way, anybody watching, WLA, actually, we pull freight with Colby.
Oh
And
yeah.
so see, poor Colby, he just keeps getting stuck with me everywhere. Yeah, here we are, Colby. But there's been times that people would say, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm coming out of Salinas." No, you can't. They've moved. Oh, I'm doing a cooler clean out. And you may literally, nobody is probably going to believe this, but Colby can verify for me. You may load 3 pallets of berries and come all the way across the country with 3 pallets of berries, just, because you have expiration dates, you have all that, and you can't run it to Yuma and get it back over. It's rare, but I mean, that's the clean out. Everything's got to go. Everything's got to be emptied out. And everything's got to be moved. When is it pretty much the end in Salinas? How much longer do we have in Salinas?
I mean, I don't know if it necessarily ever ends. You're gonna have some winter stuff like they do like a broccoli and a cauliflower run, which that'll probably tail off towards the end of the year, and then those items usually seem to get going on the front end, um, in the real early spring. So it never really like completely dies, but when you get into that like January, February, like I mean people are calling like, "Hey, you got a load," and it's like, "I got a load of air, and it
Yeah,
doesn't weigh and it does not pay, but I'll get you to Yuma." I mean,
exactly.
there's nothing,
Let's
I
load
mean,
a load of
it's
ice.
yeah, you know, uh, and it can get, to where those times of year, like unless you really need to come up here or you're got some sort of year-round deal out of here, it can be, real tough.
Right, right. So let's go into market. Let's go into what's happening right now. What can carriers, drivers, and let's break those two apart and let's break each one of them down. Let's go
Okay.
with what can carriers start looking for, and from now, and let's go to I don't want to go too far because it can change so fast.
Oh yeah,
So you just
absolutely.
take us as far as you feel like you're not, that we aren't going to see a change. Take us that far on the carrier side, and then we'll break it down for drivers. What can drivers expect? What is, how's it going to work for drivers? Let's go the carrier side first.
Okay. I mean, on the carrier side, I try to be pretty optimistic. I'd like to say that there's got to be some light at the end of the tunnel. Like we talked about the other day, I went to the Tyson Carrier Conference and they had Ravi Shankar, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, up there. And he's the transportation and logistics analyst for JP Morgan. And a lot about what he talked about is, the last three freight recessions that we've been in, they go up, they come down, they bounce on the bottom, and then they spike back up again, and same thing. So what he was saying, according to their numbers, is we're at the point where we're bouncing back on the bottom again. So, you know, history would say that there's going to be an uptick in the market. Um, it's just a matter of when. And a lot of what he talked about has to do with the American consumer. If the American consumer defaults, we're probably not going to see, uh, a freight increase in the market. However, if the American consumer can stay resilient, get through these high interest rates, and get through, all these troubles that they're facing today, uh, we're probably going to see the freight market uptick because they were saying that a lot of the bigger box stores and whatnot have been holding off on ordering. They're not, ramping up on inventory, which all of the producers have ramped up and produced all this stuff because historically, they should be selling it and they're not. So, there's one side of the equation he was saying that we could see, like we saw during COVID, that everybody pulls the trigger at once, and there's too many loads for the capacity to cover. Um, so, I mean, we try and stay resilient. Obviously, us, we're not looking for the cheap truck. We're not looking for the most expensive truck. We're looking for the value add, and the best truck, um, to give our customer. And I think we have a good customer base clientele that, they have the same type of values. They're getting cheaper prices, but they know that cheaper is not always better. And a lot of the people that we deal with, we stuck by them during COVID and when rates were going bananas. And you know, I would say a lot of customers have remembered that.
I think you're right, and I think that that's also where your carriers remember with you, um, because the freight's always been there with you. Um, I know I was heard today, and I think you had like 50 loads just today, and it was like crazy.
Yeah, it's
Um,
been madness.
do something for me really quick. A lot of
Hmm.
people don't understand when they say capacity, okay? A lot of people are, and I say drivers wise, and some carriers still don't understand that what capacity means. They think that that's more so of commodity and of product. Explain how that difference is of what capacity actually means, what it stands for.
Yeah, so we look at capacity as a driver and a truck and trailer that's available. And is that truck and trailer and driver available where we need them? And are they willing to go somewhere that we need them to go? So, for example, I mean, like you guys, if I'm trying to send a load to New Jersey, you know, you guys are not gonna probably want to play ball with that. That's not near honey hole. Um, so, I might not have capacity for that, but if I need something going to the Carolinas, and for if you guys are available, then yeah, I have capacity for that. Um, so that's what capacity is. There could be this many trucks and trailers and this many drivers, but you also have to understand they have to be where the loads are.
Right.
Um, they can't, you could have all your trucks in North Carolina and there's no loads, and all the loads are in California, and it's like, well,
Right.
there's no capacity.
And that's
you
and
know
that's where a lot of people, and you see that, and you see a lot of it on social media, where a lot that don't understand, oh, all the capacity is sitting in North Carolina. And you hear
yeah.
people say, well, yeah, but that's all that product that's there. And there's so much product there and there's no trucks there. No, it's actually the opposite.
hmm
Capacity is the truck and trailer. So, thanks for clarifying that in the middle of me interrupting you. I'm like,
no,
give
you're
me a
good.
squirrel. But it's that education. And that's exactly what we're doing here with Life on 18 Wheels. And, and Bobby and Steve has been great about that, because that's exactly what we want to do and also the drivers. I want to get into what do drivers need to expect right now, and at what areas, because you are, pickup times, detention times, and I should say, now I hate the word detention. I hate it. I'm gonna remove it from my vocabulary. Because I'm back from the day where I'd get a load from you and there'd be 9, 10, 11 pickups. And it was like no big deal. I'd go in Yuma and check into 6 different places at one time. And they'd call you on the CB and you'd run over and you'd run over there and you'd have somebody check in for you there, and, this kind of thing. So it didn't bother me. Or I understood you may be sitting for 36 hours waiting on berries. And
Yeah.
I know the process has speeded it up. I know that that's helped. But what I want you to touch on and explain how the process works. What and how does that product, where does that start? So a driver understands what happens before it gets to the dock and goes on their truck. Then if that truck gets over here and say it goes to deliver, what are some of the holdups, or what can be, because drivers are getting frustrated. We all know that. And it seems like they get more frustrated now. I don't know if it's because they see, even though rates may not affect them, but in the long term will. Um, but it's a question of why, that we may never know. But you've seen it yourself. You've heard it yourself. You get phone calls of, I've been sitting here for 8 hours. This makes no sense. These trucks get in before me. Why did he get loaded and I didn't?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So bring it from the very beginning for me. When that stuff is growing so pretty in the field, and what happens?
Yeah, so the best way that I like to kind of lay it out is, when there's somebody that's a little hot-headed or a little frustrated, uh, the the best and quickest way that I try to break it down is this stuff is picked, packed, cooled, and shipped all in the same day. So, you know, a lot of that you got to think that someone physically cut that by hand. Most of the time, I mean, there is some automation out there, but a majority of this stuff is harvested by hand, packed into a box. That box is put up onto a harvester, onto a pallet, stacked into a full pallet, and then they'll pack as many boxes as they can that day. And simultaneously throughout the day, there's trucks coming and picking that stuff up and taking it to the cooler, and then it's offloaded and put into inventory. Then it got to go in the tube, get cooled, then move from there into the cold room, and then it shows it's available, and the process goes on and on until you're loaded. But there's some key things like cauliflower. Cauliflower is like 4 hours to cool. I mean, it's just so dense. That's just what it takes to get it cold. Um, and sometimes that stuff is not brought in from the field until 5, 6 p.m. It doesn't reach the cooler until that time. And so, when they give you a 10 o'clock appointment, that's why. Um, I mean, there's really no way around that. And there's also a lot of other things going on, especially during transition. Um, Stuff might be getting transferred from a different growing region. So yes, you're checking in Yuma, but maybe the buyer and the shipper, they're all working together, and they're bringing 4 pallets from Salinas on a different truck to complete your order, and that's not, just a hop, skip, and a jump, it's a 10, 11 hour trek.
Yeah.
So, if that truck gets out late, then he might not be showing up till the next day late. Um, or there's a lot of product during that time that comes from Mexico. I mean, I had one yesterday, green onions, and they were giving me a 10 p.m. for 16 boxes. And it's like, guys, can we get it on the next one? Like 10 p.m. because you're waiting on a transfer from Mexico. We don't even know if that transfer is going to make it, So, and we do the best we can and work with customers and try and get the drivers out as quickly as possible. Um, but I would agree with you. It does seem like sometimes it's never fast enough. Um,
Okay, you just said, okay, and I've been in this situation, and so I'm not even going to go there except for to let you take this is 16 boxes, and
mhm.
you don't know that it's going to get across, or you don't know that it's going to get out of Salinas, and it's 570 miles
Yeah.
from Salinas to Yuma.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm still got it. I still got
Still
it.
got it.
Yeah, I still got it. Anyway, so at what point do you, or who is the one that actually takes the control over saying, I don't want to hold this truck for 16 boxes when the whole load needs to be delivered because the customer needs the load? How does that work?
I guess it just depends on who's paying the freight. That pretty much dictates kind of what's going on, or who our customer is. So whether that's a shipper-based customer, whether that's a like a produce broker-based customer, whether it's a wholesaler or retailer, um, who's ever setting it up with us, it's ultimately their decision. Um, sometimes those 16 boxes are pretty much the only thing that matters.
Right,
Believe
right,
it,
because
believe it or
such,
not. I mean,
yeah,
people can't believe that, but sometimes that is the case, that it's a specialty item for,
yeah.
Panera Bread or whoever, and they gotta have those items. Um, so it basically comes down to the shipper or, whoever is paying the freight. Um, but there's some options sometimes. It's like, hey, can we sub it? Can we put it into a different label? Can we get a different size? Sometimes there's different options that'll fit the bill to, not cut it, but maybe they wanted it in this label, but they'll have it in a different label and they'll accept it. Whatever the case,
Or
there's
size,
different.
like you said.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
but obviously that also depends on if that works for them or it doesn't.
I think that really honestly, Colby, tells drivers and even carriers so much because here's the thing. Getting frustrated because you know you have 16 boxes and you're thinking just exactly what I brought to you. 16 boxes. Come on. Really? I got a whole load of the same stuff. But the thing is you may not understand because you may not have it in front of you until you get that bill of lading to know that that 16 boxes is a specialty item, which means it may be a specialty size, it may be a specialty quality, it may be, like you said, the label, everything may be on a completely different on those 16 boxes. And I think that a lot of people don't know that. That's come in the industry over the years. And the only way I learned it, of course, was by asking, was by people like you teaching and training. And literally, and the thing is, and I'm going to say this to all you drivers, okay? Listen up, listen really close. Patience, having patience, being kind. You can find out all these answers, and not just finding the answers. This is about education. You're learning right now from listening to Colby, but you're learning from these people at these packing houses. And that's your education to further your career to make you a better produce hauler. And that's what we want you to be. That's exactly what we're sitting here doing here tonight, is sitting here trying to help you understand, keep you from getting irritated. I mean, that, yeah, absolutely. But the education that you can get from everything that Colby's sharing and bringing to you is huge, huge. And you can't find it anywhere in this industry anymore. Nobody takes the time to do that. So I'm not throw that in there. I got completely off on my rant, but the thing is, if you're a driver, slow down and listen. There's so much in my little produce pimp here. Okay, so we've got the driver. He's got loaded. Um, ooh, we need to find out from you. Okay, so should we be, and I've got my own answer, should we be drivers letting the cooler decide how they want to load my truck? Or should we be the ones that are still sitting in 2020 when everything was shut down and not allowed on the dock, being assertive and asking, which now everybody lets us on the dock. You just have to do it. Getting off our fannies and getting on the dock and checking product. So, what kind of those kind of things can you point out that's the most important?
I think there's a happy medium.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, obviously I'm on both sides of the equation. Um, so for example, like if you're going to go to a shipper that's doing like a commodity or a packaged salad or, dipping sticks or something of that nature that, let's just say there's 50 items on the PO, right? And that forklift driver has got to go around and hand stack all those different items, right? And saran wrap the pallet, and they're not even layers, and you got this box stacked on top of this box. Those boxes are taped shut. You might not even be able to hardly know what's in there unless you really look at the tiny label on the box. So and for something like that, it might take 5-6 hours to get loaded, right? Well,
Yes.
I can tell you, I'm not going to stand in front of the dock for 5 or 6 hours while the
Nope.
forklift driver's, doing his thing, and then so he's going to pull up with a pallet that's got, all this saran wrap on it, these boxes all over the place, and you're going to go, "Oh, sir, please stop. I need to count every single carton and know what commodity is with, 50 different line items." Like it's not going to happen,
No,
right?
you
You
can't do
wouldn't,
it.
you would,
It's
you can't
impossible.
do it.
No, it's
So in something
impossible.
like it's impossible.
Yes.
So in something like that, you know, I always advise the guys, hey, get with the forklift driver, tell him how you want it loaded, make sure he's putting it in there, the first couple pallets correctly, and then maybe go back and check every now and then. But I'm not saying you got to physically stand there for 6 hours in a 34-degree cold room. Um, I we'd like you to be able to rest a little bit at that time. Now, when you're doing a straight load of strawberries, different story. You better be on the dock. You better be stopping the forklift driver. You better be pulping every single pallet. If there's anything over 35 degrees, everything stops. Phone call to us. We're getting on the horn with the cooler, and we're not loading that truck with something pulping warmer than 35 degrees. Um, and that's a lot of it, is you have that right. A lot of drivers, they get a little scared, and it's like, hey, you know what? Like the cooler might get upset with you. Keep your cool, stay professional. But if they're not gonna, pulp it or do whatever you want, um, within reason, it's better to just say, hey, you know what? Like I'll just pull out.
Exactly.
Because say you do load it at 38 degrees and you didn't get the okay from anyone, you show up and they reject it, like that's on you,
Yeah.
you know?
The carrier is definitely gonna eat that, and then they're gonna be yelling at you at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just and the thing is again, I keep trying to explain everybody, a reefer is not to cool product. It,
Yeah,
it's not to cool anything, it's to maintain that temperature. So if you put
absolutely.
hot product on there, you're not going to get any result by the time, and I don't care if you come 2,500 miles back to North Carolina, you may see some temperature drop a little bit, but I promise you, when that went on at 38 degrees and what we call the tattletale, which is your temp recorder or temp on the reefer, boom. I mean, it's there. Plus, the
Yeah.
product is not going to be, the product is going to be bad.
hmm Yeah. I mean, it's not hard, it just takes a little bit of effort. Um, like on our berry loads, we have put like, I think Marshall put like 30 recorders on a truck one time, just to see, where we felt the best reading came. And we've determined that on the 12th pallet space, so in the 12th, 13th pallet position, we feel that that gives the most true reading of what's going on in the trailer, not on the wall, not on the door. You know, um, some people put them on the wall, and it's like, you're out in West Texas and it's 120 degrees outside. You don't think about it, but that unit that's strapped to the side of the wall, it could show that your temperature's 5 degrees warmer just from the sun beating on the outside of the trailer.
Right,
And you
right.
roll up and they pull your data logger and it shows you're at, 38, 39 degrees all the time. They're like, hey, see you later, you know?
Yeah, they're going to
Um,
reject it. And
yeah,
something else is, when you're pulping stuff, make sure that of course your thermometer's calibrated. A
yeah.
lot of people can teach you how to do that by sticking in a glass of ice, and it actually works. But you know, when you start loading berries, I love hauling berries, which that's my favorite commodity to haul. I love berries. That's just I love it. Is that once you see any type of change in temperature, you need to be on the phone. You need to be calling Colby, whoever you're hauling for, whatever. But you need to call your company. You need to call, and that needs to be reported immediately, because the longer you wait, the more likely and the possibility of the rejection. That's huge. And a lot of times, how long is it before you ever find out when you have a problem?
Well, we've really made a push like over the last, I don't know, 3, 4 years, I'd say, maybe 5 years. At the time, it was called Locust Track. They got purchased by Emerson,
I love
and
them.
yeah, so we partnered with them. Um, and basically integrated them with our TMS, so that when we get a berry load, we make sure that either the shipper's locus track is on there or ours. So like a lot of the shippers that we service, they're still using a regular 9-day Ryan, which, if you're new to this, it's just a recorder with a paper box, and basically, all it's good for is telling you that your load's hot after you got it there, and there's nothing you could do about it. But technology's come a long way with the Locust Track and Emerson. Um, so what we'll do is, as soon as that load ships out, we set the parameters, a high temperature, a low temperature, and launch it. And if it gets outside of that range, we get a email automatically. Hey, this order, here's where it is. This is what the temperature is. And we're on the phone with the company and with the driver. Hey, we need a picture of your reefer setting, and we've saved orders uh, with that technology. We've also, been able to mitigate claims potentially with that technology. It's been a game changer, and it's integrated with our TMS, so we can also pull, the GPS location,
Yeah,
so it's tracking at the same time. Um,
I love
but
it. I love
yeah,
it. I
those
mean, it
are.
protects me as a driver, and it
hmm
protected me as a carrier. And I mean, it all the way around. When that came out, I have literally said, why do we not have that on every trailer?
hmm
If you're not using it, all y'all need to start, because the tracking, again, we all know tracking. Come on, You want to know what's in the or where your product is. You don't care if I'm in the bathroom. So, quit
Yeah.
tracking me, track the load. But the parameters and setting those and being able for your team, and I mean your team, your night people, I can call them, they know my voice. It's still today, and they're right on that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Uh,
Yeah, we have a staff dedicated to that. We call them our tracks team, and that's all they do. Um, is just they're on that, and we want to make sure, we have just as much skin in the game as everybody else. So, we don't want to deal with a rejection. We don't want the carrier dealing with a rejection. So, we'll get a picture of that reefer temp, and if we feel that something's wrong, we'll swing into a service center and just get that a-okay.
and also, Colby, just like with you at ATS, y'all are familiar of how you should load loads. A lot of times drivers will say, especially new drivers will say, I'm not real sure how to do this. And you may have a new forklift driver, that's like wants to put berries in straight in, going in. There's products that you have to watch how you load. And to find that information, they can pick the phone up and call you at any time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we try and do a real good job. um, I mean, not necessarily me. I mean, I'll tell them when I send them the load, but my team, they're all trained up on, like, oh, this is a load of asparagus, like it has to go sideways, right? Or this is a load of melons, make sure there's airbags. We like to load the last 4 pallets sideways, so they don't fall over. Um, there's just a couple key tricks that you kind of learn, or, never have a single on the tail, just there's a couple tips and tricks that we have learned over the years through trial and error, what works really, really well and what doesn't. Um, so yeah, I mean, anytime my staff's here, and we want to make sure it gets loaded right,
Right.
and sometimes that does take a phone call down to the dock manager, you know, um, not to anyone's fault, but it's like, hey, sometimes they do need a little reminder that at the end of the day, we're going to load it how we want it loaded. And their big thing is they don't, they think that, oh, you're going to be overweight, right? And we don't want to redo your load, and like driving the specialty trucks, like some drivers that drive those, long wheelbase, they know that they got to load it in a certain way
Yeah.
for the weight to work out, and it's not the same as, a regular Freightliner.
Yeah.
You're going to have to load the trailer differently, but they
Yes.
don't understand that. So, and usually we can come to some sort of agreement. If like I always tell them, well, if we do it wrong, we'll pay you to fix it. And then that kind of usually changes everyone's tune.
Exactly. Gosh, we've covered so much, but at the same time, I think there's been so much information here. Everything from the move, everything from people getting to know you, especially since we're, starting something new here with Life on 18 Wheels.
Absolutely.
And, at the same time, touching base of what capacity is, touching base of, you know, produce and where's it at and when am I going to get it with drivers, and also touching base of loading loads and thinking about your temperatures. And trailers are not for cool down, they're to maintain. um,
Absolutely.
I want to ask you, and I hope that you'll continue to keep joining me. Let's do this let's do this at least once a month. And if
Okay.
anything is going on crazy, let's jump on and do this that week that this is going on, and let's update, and let's let's join together and let's educate more people about produce, how it happens, where it happens, why it happens, and start picking some commodities that maybe we could spotlight of how you are going to load, or what's it supposed to look like when you load, and what carriers should expect from you on that kind of load. So these are the things that I really want to educate and share with people, and I'd really love for you to continue to come back and help me do that.
Absolutely. However I can help.
You're the bomb. You're the bomb diggity bomb.
Appreciate it.
Well, I'm not going to keep you any longer, and I know you've had a long day, and I can't say thank you enough. Um, and I can't wait till we do this again.
Yeah, let's do it again. Thank you for having me, and it was a great time.
Thanks. You and Amanda have a wonderful and blessed happy Thanksgiving,
We'll
and
do it.
take some time and visit with family, and don't be sitting on the phone taking fielding calls the whole time. I know you're going to have to part of it, but I just want to say thanks, my friend, and God bless you and the whole family and
You're
everybody
welcome.
at
Thank you.
ATS. Colby, give everybody one more time or tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, and
Sure.
let's go from there.
You can go LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, any of the social media sites. We're on there, or I'm on there, and been making an effort to get on there a little more and try and put some educational type stuff out there.
Phone number and email. How about that, Colby?
Sure. You can get us here at the office 24/7 at 831-757-4244. And then my email is just my first name, Colby, at atssalinas.com. So two S's. And that's how you can get us.
Well, I'm going to take my carrots. I'm going to take them out of the back of my trailer. Since you figured that out, I'm going to get you before it's over with. But again, thank you, and everybody that's watched this. I hope that you found something in this that you can that'll make you a better produce hauler or a carrier that understands. And really quick, 30 seconds. Where do you think we're going? Where do you think that we're going in the next 3 weeks? Where do you think, are we going up? Or are we going down?
Um, I think it could go both ways. I think it's probably a little bit tighter now than it probably will be towards the end of the month. Just, right now everyone's been ramping up kind of. And, we had a big Sikh parade in Yuba City, and also we had Diwali last weekend, which that took a lot of capacity off the road. And so, those two things, I think, we should see some even keel here, hopefully at the end of the month. But then again, you get one big winter storm that runs across 40, um, it could turn the whole deal upside down, in one
Yeah,
night,
exactly. All right. You heard it here. You heard it from our produce pimp, Colby Varley, ATS, Salinas, California. Hit him up. But better yet, come back. I'm going to have something else in the trailer for him next time. You just wait. Thanks for joining us. And I am Ingrid Brown. And this is Life on 18 Wheels presented by WLA Trucking in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Happy Thanksgiving.